welcome to the Gaping News Network, your source for everything related to the gaping hole. The playoffs are underway, and so far only one team has shown signs of life. We start our recap with number 5, Freshly Baked Synonym Rolls versus number 4, Team Knot. This matchup was projected to be close, but it was not. Team Knot started running away with this about 2 p.m. Pacific time on Sunday. For Team Synonym Rolls, Cam Newton continued his disappointing fantasy season, ending the day with 18 points on 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Those touchdowns came late in the game as the Panthers tried to claw their way back. With the exception of Week 6, when he scored 33 points, Superman has been quite pedestrian. The rest of the team didn't perform much better. Posting a 61 in the playoffs won't result in a victory all that often, and just like last year, I'm one and done. Team Knot, on the other hand, posted an impressive 107 points with a strong showing from Bengals backup runner Jeremy Hill. Packers wide receiver Jordy Nelson has been Mr. Consistent this season, and again he put up a double-digit score. Although the marquee performance for Team Knot was the Packers defense, who racked up 26 points, their most of the season. Team Knot advances to round 2, leaving Synonym Rolls licking their delicious wounds. Perhaps this season it was all synonym, not enough roll. Now on to a more competitive, albeit low-scoring affair between number 6, Third and Chris Long, and number 3, OC 949ers. Neither lineup cracked the 60-point mark, however, style points are not relevant in fantasy football. As the number 3 seed, I expected more from OC 949ers, who only managed 54 points. Drew Brees continued to struggle, and your chances of winning aren't great when the bottom half of your starting lineup earns a collective 10 points. Third and Chris Long eked out a 1-point win, 55-54, riding the coattails of Aaron Rodgers, who kept rolling with 341 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. The rest of Chris Long's roster produced a mere 27 points. Now, thanks to a surprise performance by New England running back Jonas Gray, Chris Long's bench would have handily beat both starting rosters. And this performance presents a huge question mark heading into round 2 of the playoffs. And with that, let's look ahead to next week's matchup with a new segment, The Ruling on the Field. It's pretty simple. I'll make a statement representing the ruling on the field, and our analysts will explain whether or not that call is confirmed or it's overturned. First, let me introduce our analysts. One-time Pop Warner running back and long-time armchair quarterback. Let's welcome Brent to the show. Brent, thanks so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Sitting opposite of Brent is former on-air radio personality and current pharmaceutical test patient, Brent. We greatly appreciate you being with us today, Brent. Now look, I'm happy to be here, but just a heads up, the side effects of the current drug I'm testing are sudden, but they're unpredictable. Excellent. So, as usual, we have no idea what to expect from you. Gentlemen, as I explained earlier, the premise of this segment is simple. I will make a call, and you tell me if the ruling is confirmed or overturned. Let's start with something that applies to the entire league. The ruling on the field is fantasy playoffs should not start until player bye weeks are finished. Brent, why don't you kick things off?
For me, this call is confirmed, especially during the playoffs. You want to field your best team. Having to ride the waiver wire for key positions like quarterback or wide receiver, during the playoffs especially, puts a roster which got you there in the first place at a disadvantage. In an effort to keep high levels of competition, fantasy football playoffs should start no earlier than Week 13. The call is confirmed.
You know, it must be nice to live in a vacuum, Brent, okay, where no other details matter. Listen, this call is overturned, and here's why. When a fantasy regular season runs into Week 13 or Week 14, you start seeing repeat matchups. It creates an unfair advantage when one team has to play a good team like Weddle's Beard twice, whereas another team gets to play, say, Uncle twice. It's just not fair. Everyone knew the length of the regular season before the draft, and they also knew the bye weeks of their players. If a team manager is not prepared to cope with players on a bye week, then that is lack of foresight on the part of the team manager. This call is overturned. Fairness of overall schedule is most important. You play each team once, then start the playoffs. That's how it works. The call is overturned.
Wouldn't you want the playoffs to be as competitive as possible? then why would you want your best players on a bye
I
week?
do want the
during
playoffs to be competitive, but this is a marathon, not a sprint. If you look up and say, oh crap, I don't have a replacement player for my bye week players, then you were short-sighted in your acquisitions throughout the regular season, which will impact your performance during the postseason. Be mindful of buys when drafting your players. Be mindful of what your roster looks like in 3 to 4 weeks so that you don't have to dig yourself out of a hole. Keep quality backup players on your roster. It will take up a bench spot, but it's insurance. And just like insurance, you need it when you need it. If you don't have it when you need it, then you're screwed, and nobody will feel sorry for you.
Well, you, sir, are wrong.
Well, you, sir, have a ridiculous mustache. Let's try to keep focused on the topics here. There will be plenty of time for this name-calling on Twitter after we're done. Let's take a look at our round 2 matchups. Team Knot versus Weddle's Beard. This mother-son matchup has plenty of intrigue. Top-seeded Weddle's Beard has a few buys to address. Team Knot is coming off their 3rd win in a row, having done so in convincing fashion. So the call on the field is Weddle's Beard gets eliminated by his mommy. Brent, let's start with you this time. I don't know who is making the calls on these field, but again, this call is overturned. Weddle's Beard has a very capable backup in Russell Wilson, and Darren McFadden is poised for a big game at home against Kansas City as the Raiders will pick up their first win this week. Weddle's Beard will be fine. This team has shown up week in and week out that it's a contender. It's a fighter. And you don't get to the top through luck alone. Lose to mommy? No. That call is overturned.
I will have to disagree with you, friends.
Of course you do.
And I uphold this call. Well, I just think our first topic is too big of a factor here for Weddle's Beard to cope. 4 players on a bye week, Bradshaw injured, placed on IR, and a lot of difficult matchups for the remaining roster. Arizona at Seattle, New England at Detroit, Miami at Denver. It's going to be hard for any of these skill players to get going this week. Team Knot is looking at Atlanta hosting Cleveland. Green Bay should have no problem traveling to Minnesota. Dallas is hosting the struggling Giants. So I do see Team Knot having another strong showing. Mommy puts her son on timeout. The call is upheld.
Do you even hear yourself when you say these things?
I do hear myself. Barely over you. And I stand by my opinion. Team Knot has an edge due to buys and favorable matchups.
And that's enough for this topic. Looks like we are hitting some hot button topics, but let's try to remain organized and civil about this. Next matchup, 3rd and Chris Long versus Muhammad Raleigh and Cassius Clint. The call on the field, despite his breakout 43-point performance last week, New England running back Jonas Gray should remain on the bench. Brent, what do you think?
I would have this call overturned.
Oh my God.
You have to start this guy. You play the hot hand. That's how the Patriots do it. And it doesn't get much hotter than 199 yards and 4 touchdowns. The upside is just too much to sit this guy. Even if his productivity is reduced by 75%, he's still having a great day. In this type of fantasy league, touchdowns are the cash cow. This guy has proven he's trustworthy with the ball, he's durable, and he's a power runner. The Patriots' offensive line is playing well as a unit. I say the call is overturned. You start Jonas Gray.
You know, I think Brent would be a good fit as the Raiders' next head coach because these personnel decisions are atrocious. This call is confirmed. You keep Jonas Gray on the bench because there's no way he has anything close to a repeat performance. All of his touchdowns last week came within the 10-yard line, and a run defense that concedes nearly 200 yards is already having a terrible day. The Patriots face the Lions next week, who are capable of keeping pace with the Pats through the air. Matthew Stafford, Megatron, one of the best duos in the game. So don't expect Belichick to lean heavily on the running game. Remember Matt Asiago? Who remembers that? He had a screaming start in place of Adrian Peterson, then he quickly came back down to earth as teams got film of him. See, I don't see this being any different. The Lions will look at film, they will prepare to stop the run, so Jonas Gray will have his work cut out for him. This call is upheld, you keep him on the bench. All right, last question. Who do you see making it through this week and reaching the finals? Brent, go.
I think Team Knot will meet 3rd and Chris Long in the finals.
Okay, so you have the league's top 2 seeds losing this week. Brent, how about you? Well, since I live in reality, I'm calling a 1-2 finals matchup. Weddle's Beard versus Muhammad Raleigh and Cassius Kent. And there you have it. We certainly have an exciting week of playoff fantasy football ahead of us this weekend. For all of me here at our studio in Laguna Niguel, thanks for watching.